Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I have the honor of welcoming you all to the fourth yet very first online edition of ID Connect here at this beautiful hotspot in Eindhoven, the Evenement. Our study association, Industrial Design Lucid, has the tradition of organizing this event with the main goal of connecting industrial designers and companies. Tonight we actually have a unique version because we have upgraded the event to an online talk show, an interactive talk show actually. So that's actually where you all come in because we would like to invite all of you to participate in this event. So everyone present here, but also everyone present at home. So ask your questions, give comments. You're really welcome to do that via YouTube, of course. Tonight we will have a lot going on actually, but the main thing, the most important thing is that we want to create awareness of what industrial designers actually can do and also to connect everyone. In this fast-changing world, it's really important to keep updating and to keep innovating, really. And actually, the innovation is where industrial designers come in, of course, because creating ideas, validating them, but also iterating on them, that's actually what industrial designers can do best. Although every industrial designer has like this core set of competences, every designer is unique because of their skill set. We have like service designers, we have interaction designers, product designers, you name it, we have everything. But they all have like a similar mindset, this proactive, self-directed mindset. And industrial designers can also be seen as translators. Translators between technology and society. They can translate wishes into product specifications, problems into solutions as well. Tonight we actually have a real full program for you guys. We have some presentations, some design case pitches, also some networking, of course. And our guests tonight include Koos Service Design, Signify, Canon Production Printing, and our main sponsor, DLL and ASML. To host this event, I would like to introduce our host of tonight, our fellow industrial design student, but also committee member. Here he is. This is Mike Rosenberg.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to ID Connect 2021. Thank you, Jesse, for this great opening speech, and I'm looking forward to tonight. We have exciting guests, exciting presentations, and very exciting design cases. I would like to introduce the people that we have today. Jeroen from Canon, Oda from Koos Service Design, Koen from Signify, and Naomi from DLL. And at home we also have Joey from ASML. He will join later when we are actually doing the ASML presentation. I will shortly walk you through the program for today, and then we'll just kick it off and start with all the exciting presentations and design cases. We'll start the evening with two presentations, first by DLL and then by Koos Service Design. Following, we'll have the design cases. These design cases have been projects that students have been working on over the past month, and they will present their final ideas here, together with the companies that can actually give feedback, and also you from home can give feedback on these projects. Then we'll have a networking round, because of course what we're also here for is to get to know each other. It's great to hear about these companies, but it's also great to actually get to know them. So we'll have a lot of space for networking. We'll have an award ceremony where we will present who actually won from the design cases, and you will be the one voting for that, so take a close eye on what's actually happening. And then we'll have a presentation by ASML and finishing the evening up with more networking. Because again, we're here to network and to get to know each other. There are a few practical things that I would like to start with. First of all, we really would like to have your input and questions. Of course, it's different from what you're used to in ID Connect, where you're able to raise your hand and ask a question. So what we would really like is to actually get you involved in the YouTube chat. Throughout the presentations and throughout the design cases, you will be able to answer your questions or to type your questions in the reaction bar. and we will then ask them to the presenters and the people here, so that actually together we can still have an interactive experience, even though we're not together today. Then one important thing, which you maybe already saw on social media, we also have a prize for tonight. It's a suit supply, 250 euro suit that you can actually win if you pay close attention tonight and actually interact with the companies. At the end of the evening, we will send a quiz to you in the form of a Google Forms, where you have to answer questions to certain specific questions about these companies. These can be about anything, about the presentations, these can be about the design cases, or these can even be things that you will have to ask yourself to the companies. What we'd like to do here is to invite you to actually start talking and to start networking, because we also understand that specifically digital, it can be quite scary to actually reach out to someone and actually start that conversation. We'll not tell you yet what the questions are, so it's up to you to actually find out as much as you can about these companies, about the jobs you can do here, about the internship opportunities maybe there, but specifically about what you find interesting, because that's what these questions are focused on. So once more, you get the chance to fill this in at the end, and then we'll check who's actually the winner, and at the end of the evening, we will award this winner with the suit. Then let's start. And the first speaker I would like to invite is actually our main sponsor for tonight. It's DLL. DLL has its headquarters in Eindhoven, but it's actually a multinational company that is active in over 35 countries worldwide. They offer financial services to a broad variety of companies. This can be in the agriculture sector, but also technology or transport, and even way more. The person that will be presenting this is actually a familiar face to all of you. It's someone that actually comes from the ID faculty. So Naomi, I would like to invite you forward and tell us a little more about DLL.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Naomi Kool. I work at DLL, de Lage Landen, and I am a trainee of the innovation team. I did my bachelor and master's of industrial design at the TUE. And about a year ago, I was at ID Connect myself. As you can see, that's a picture of me last year at ID Connect. And I completely ignored the company that I currently work for, DLL. Even though there were people around me who said, maybe you should talk to them. But I was confused. I wasn't sure what DLL was or what they're doing. And I looked them up. I checked the website. I did some Google search. And there were all these words that just confused me. But somehow I got to work here. I'll tell you how that happened in a bit. But since I work here, I started in July 2020. I graduated also in July 2020. Don't work here too long. But in the time that I work here, I have learned how the business works. And I want to do my attempt to explain who we are, what we do in my words. So here's an example of an asset, a tractor. This is a farmer who uses the tractor. Bought the tractor from a tractor dealer who has a showroom of tractors, and not every asset there is sold yet. So how is a dealer able to finance their assets? Question. That is where DLL comes in. Another example here is the picnic fleet, those cars. And we help to finance these cars. We put in effort to understand the business model and the dynamics of the market. So we don't just have the money, we also have the brains to think along and find the best financial solution. We operate in several sectors. We work with manufacturers, dealers, distributors, distributor networks. And those are all these words. I don't get them. Take a look at these icons there. Take a closer look. You can see a treadmill. You can see a sort of construction machine. A printer or a fax machine, and below you have an MRI scanner, so just to give you an impression of the contexts that we operate in. We operate in 30 countries. I have a global role, so I meet with colleagues who work in the United States, or Brazil, or Sweden, or the UK. I really like this. I get to see all these different cultures, and I find it very interesting. I don't know if you can still see the slide. Okay, I don't. we are, our parent company is the Rabobank. And to sort of summarize, we are, as DLL, sort of invisible. We're in the background, and we want to enable our customer, in the example I just gave, the dealer, and our end customer, the farmer, to sell and use their needed assets. Now what I do, I design or innovate indirectly for our customer and customers, but directly for my fellow members, my fellow DLL members, my colleagues, and they are my sort of users, for the people I design for. And here you have, get an impression of all the things I make. So I'm part of the innovation team, and our goal is to create a culture of innovation where we want to encourage every member to well, innovate. If you are a member, you got an idea, you can submit it to our website, our portal, and we help these members to realize their ideas, to build fast, fail fast, learn fast. We give workshops. I help to create these tools and materials to help the members to innovate. And these are a few examples of the things that I have worked in the past couple of months. This is a representation of my team. As you can see, some of my fellow members work in the Netherlands, some in the United States. And sort of a fun fact here is that there are 4 trainees in this team, being Alex, Amina, Koos, and myself. And what I like is that we're sort of the same age, and we all have different backgrounds, and it's really nice to have this fresh perspective on the business, because in 5 years, DLL wants to do things that we're currently not doing. So how can we innovate? What business models can we innovate? I don't know, but that's where we are for, and that's where we aim to help the business with. So I said a few things about traineeships. I had never heard about traineeships before I applied. So here's my attempt to explain it in a way that maybe resonates with you, sort of in the school language. My traineeship takes about 1.5 years and is divided into sort of 3 semesters. It's not a semester, it's a rotation, but whatever. I spend, in this 1 semester, I spend time on a main project, in this case an innovation. I have time for smaller projects, and I have time for more passion things. And in the first half year, from July to February, I was fully submerged in innovation, trying to understand DLL. And for not too long, I have started my 2nd rotation. And as you can see, or 2nd semester, I am now doing a project with the enterprise architects. But I'm still part of the innovation team, and I still help with coaching projects. I still help in driving innovation, creating tools and materials. I think you can compare these projects actually with your B11 or your M11, same kind of process and emotion, maybe. And for my passion, I'm currently working on a co-creation project with the design studio. You might be familiar with them, Studio Dust. And we got budget to basically learn by do in DLL in the business. DLL has about 4,500 to 5,000 members. I do not know all of them. I do meet new people every single week. It's crazy. But of all the people I met, I only know 2 members who have a background in design, or whose native language is design. And I want to stress here that it's not always easy to talk to people whose native language isn't design. We are in a non-design context. We are not a design studio. However, I do feel very much encouraged from the day I was hired to be me, to share my design perspectives, to show my work, even though it's different. And I don't know how that is, what that's like in other companies, but I feel this and I very much value this being a trainee. So how did I get into DLL? Well, obviously I ignored them during ID Connect last year. But then I had friends who tell me maybe just set up a meeting, and I did. I finally set up a meeting. I was skeptical, I was a bit confused. I was also a bit intrigued, so I had this conversation, this meeting, and to my surprise, I could talk about my previous master projects, my professional identity and vision. We really clicked, and I did not expect it. And at the end of the conversation, I was asked, would you like to do your final master project here? And I was really surprised. I said yes. And this was 2 days before my M21 assessment. Big surprise during my assessment. But I joined. And towards the end of my final master project, a sort of similar thing happened. I was being told about a traineeship for innovation. However, these interviews had already begun. So I didn't find them. I wasn't looking for the innovation team and vice versa. But we had this mutual person between us who thought, hey, maybe these can get together, maybe that's interesting. So I did the same thing. I set up a meeting, I asked, who are you, what do you do? I was a bit confused, a bit skeptical, but I was intrigued, I was curious. And I had another really, really great connection there. I was allowed to join the interview rounds, and obviously I got through it, and I was offered the traineeship, and that's why I'm here today. Now comes more of a personal message. This is really coming from me and my experience of trying to enter this non-design context. And it brings me to this question of, how do you find what you're not looking for? How does it find you? And I think today, being here for you as a student at ID Connect, you're at the first stage to explore, to look into companies and to channel your feelings of confusion or a bit of skepticism or curiosity. You have the opportunity today, and also outside of today, of course, to ask and talk. And my suggestion is to keep learning as the sort of main objective, especially when you're talking to a company that's not a design studio, for example. Ask about projects, project processes. Do they make MVPs? Prototypes. Do they make prototypes? Low-fire prototypes, mock-ups. Do they experiment? User test. And there's so much more words, maybe buzzwords that you can ask about. What I've experienced, especially then in DLL, is that the term industrial design is confusing, so I prefer to just show what I do, show my work, and ask these questions so we have a conversation and together come to a mutual need. They are interested in me and I'm interested in them to find out how design fits in there. A few other tips to perhaps get into a place that's not used to designers. A way in could be internships or traineeships where you have sort of this mutual learning. You learn from them, they could learn from you as well. Show your stuff. If you make prototypes, even though you're behind a camera, you can hold it in front of the camera. And my last point here was a portfolio. If you consider applying for a role in a non-design company, and think about who's your competition. If there aren't designers, you can spend a week or a month on your portfolio, but you could also make a fancy A4, an idea. I had a sort of quote here of myself when throughout my application process of a traineeship. I looked at it yesterday. I think it's a bit negative. I would say replace rejected with being hired. If I'm hired in a place, I want to be hired for who I am. I'm a designer, and I don't want to hide that. I have a few other things that just come to me while being this trainee and seeing how this non-design context is how DLL works. Some things here, take a screenshot. Maybe this is some food for thought for later during the Q&A. Talk to me, talk to the other companies here. And then actually I have my last note here. I believe in effort over talent. My question to you is if you're willing to put in the effort to find the people and environment that gives you energy. And maybe that is out of your comfort zone. And I suggest you to go out, ask, learn, be bamboozled, I don't know. Whether you're stuck, sparked, in need of a different perspective or a reflection session, I don't have the answers, but I have a passion for people and potential. And that's all of you, all of my former fellow industrial design students. And I'm here today to talk. And that was it.
Thank you very much, Naomi. This was definitely a great speech to begin with, or a great presentation, not just because you talked about DLL, which is, of course, a very interesting company, but also your own experience. And I think this is also for a lot of industrial designers that are now watching, and maybe also in that experience of how do I find what fits me? Is my PIV actually something that I can translate into the real world? I think this is something really interesting. And also for the people at home, I think this is definitely also something that you can already try out in the actual connecting network rounds later, because we have people here that are really interested in designers, so also feel free to show who you are. As Naomi said, it's better to show who you are and be rejected than to shy out and maybe not sure what to tell. Maybe don't show your actual design potential. So let's see, I see a lot of questions actually coming in from the chat, so that's great. So the first question is, let's see, what did you learn in a non-design background company what you would not have learned in a design company? From Ruben.
Good question. Um, yeah, obviously the context is different, but something I didn't know. I've given workshops more so in a sort of consultancy situation, and something that I feel like is different is that the things I create now, I can sort of monitor where they go. So if I create a workshop, slides, or anything, I give it to my fellow members, my users, and I can see what they do, how it changes their behavior, their experience, and it's this ongoing process that I personally like that. I can also imagine that for some people they prefer more of a dynamic experience, but I like to see where it goes with the people I created this for. And I wouldn't have known about this continuous design process, this continuous interaction with my users in a more of a consultant company or in a design studio that does consultancy. But it's a difference in preference and style, really.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you. I see a lot of applause coming in, so
Thank you.
that's a great compliment for you. Then I have a question from Marit, which asks, how do you deal with situations where you are not understood as a designer? I see a smile on your face already, so I suppose this is not the first time.
No, it
this is
happens. But the funny thing is that me in those situations, I can be very insecure about, oh, they don't understand it, or I look stupid. But what happens most of the time is that people are surprised. I sometimes literally show something in front of the camera and say, I'm working on this project, look at this, or I make all these doodles, these drawings, and I send them to people. And their initial response sometimes is a bit of confusion. Hey, what is this? Take some time to, well, look at this sort of, they don't see these drawings that I make on a day-to-day basis. And it's interesting that it happened a few times, or then a few weeks later, someone comes back to me and say, "Hey, you made this drawing, and I was thinking about it," and that is really, really nice, actually. But there are also times where it doesn't resonate with people, and what I've done in those cases is scheduling an extra meeting and talk about it and ask, "What happened? Was it confusing?" Or having a conversation. I learn, and then I improve my things I create, my craft, so to say.
I think that's a great tip also, maybe not just for designers, but for everyone. Oda, short question to you, because I can imagine as Koos service designer, you're also working a lot basically in a similar context, where you're working with companies that, as Naomi very well said it, do not speak the design language.
Yeah.
What are your tips on that side? How do you communicate to people that are not fluent in design, so to say?
Yeah, it's a bit, depends on the project as well. We have a lot of different clients. Some are more customer-centric already than others. So we also first have a good view on how well are they doing concerning customer centricity, what kind of words do they use, to really also match our way of doing a project depending on their knowledge. So sometimes you just need a project also as a trophy, just to show the rest in the organization, like, this is what we can do with a customer journey, this is how we can innovate, just to show it to the rest of the organization. Whereas, in other projects it's less about the actual maybe visuals of that customer journey, but it's more about really doing sprints and having that fast pace of innovating. So it's also, it's interesting what you say. It really depends on also how far the organization itself is, and you have to adjust your language and also the projects itself. So it really lands in the organization. Yeah.
Two quite similar, but still like different interpretations on maybe how to work as a designer in a non-design context. And again, for the public, if this is something you find interesting, or maybe you're already struggling with when you're working with clients in your projects, feel free to reach out to the people, because they're here to answer your questions. Let's see, another question from the chat is, what is the pro of being a designer at DLL?
A pro? Okay. Well, how do I answer this? I would say I like this challenge sometimes. Well, most of the times I like this challenge of figuring out sometimes what words to use or what things to show or find the right moment to show something because it's so different for people. And the pro is that it can make a difference, not for everyone, but if you kind of get the feeling and what I can do, that's what I'm trying to do, that's the whole challenge. I like it, and it's different, I think, when you're surrounded by designers, so to say, then everyone around you has that expertise. And what I remember from being a student, sometimes it makes me so insecure and I don't know what I know, and then I see people around me who do what I do, but so much better. And then in this context where I'm one of the few, I feel like I can focus on designing rather than being concerned with how I look or if I'm good enough. I still have those insecurities, but I don't compare myself to other designers. I really reflect on my work.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that answer. And I think what's also really interesting is, as you say, that you actually now as a designer are someone else than the rest. Like with an idea, it can feel like everyone's doing the same. Am I actually doing the exact same? Are we diverging? Or are we maybe going to do also the same in the future? And to really see also, if we look at who are here today, that design can actually have a lot of different interpretations and a different way of looking at it and working with it. Then one last question maybe, because what I was curious about is that you basically, because you're in the design team, you're also driving innovation, so to say. And you said already, like you're in an innovation team that is worldwide trying to get this new kind of innovations within DLL. Where do you see this work you're doing right now in 10 years? Like what would be your goal for DLL in 10 years?
Wow, in 10 years, well, our goal is to come up with business models that we don't have right now. And I hope that in 10 years we do the things we cannot imagine right now. And I hope that I can support in the process of testing those new initiatives. I really like the prototyping phase, like to build fast, talk to your customers, get feedback, and then quit the project if there's no potential, or make something out of it if there's potential. I really want to drive this process so that we can innovate, and I hope that in 10 years I have this innovation culture is in the business, and I have lots of people around me who understand this iterative process, learning by doing, and it's implemented in the business, it's a way of working, and then probably we have another challenge around that time, but that's what I hope for in 10 years.
I think that's quite a great vision for your kind of confused face when I asked the question. And I think that's also indeed very interesting to also, as a designer, where you're trained to also look ahead and see that vision like far in the future to actually get that for yourself within such a company and within such a team. Thank you very much for your presentation and also your answers. Well, this was the first presentation, and we had some great questions. We had some great input from you on YouTube, and I saw a lot of more questions coming in, and sadly, we won't have the time to answer all of them. So again, what I would really like to say is, when we're going to network, feel free to reach out to these people and actually ask these questions, because that's what they're here for, and they're all experienced in the industry, so they can actually help you with the questions you might be insecure about or might be doubting about. For now, let's take a 5-minute break, get a drink, maybe stretch for a bit, and then in 5 minutes we'll be back with more presentations and more design cases. Thank you very much, and I see you in 5 minutes. And welcome back. I hope you had a great break, had some delicious drinks, and are ready for the next presentation, because it's already time. First, we had Naomi with a great presentation about DLL and also her own experiences within the company. And next is time for Koos Service Design, a name you might know. As I just said to Oda, there is a lot of industrial design students that have already done an internship there or are familiar with the company. So I think it's very interesting to also hear something from their side. Koos Service Design is a company that really focuses on service design, UX, and data science. As companies and organizations get challenged with increasingly complex challenges, it's also time to look for increasingly design-driven people. And this is exactly what Koos focuses on. They create services that people enjoy and use. I would like to invite Oda to tell a little bit more about Koos Service Design, what they do there, and her experiences. So, Oda, take the stage, please.
Let's go. Thanks for the introduction. Hi everyone, my name is Oda Lansman. I'm service design consultant at Koos Service Design. So I'll introduce you first who I am, and then of course what I do at Koos and what we do. So here I am, Oda Lansman, service design consultant at Koos for around 2.5, 3 years now, and also a former ID student. So good to be back here with you guys. First, a little bit about me before I dive into what Koos does. I'm originally from Den Bosch, as you can see from the bossenbollen. If you haven't tried one, you should definitely do. I started my bachelor industrial design in 2011, so it's a while back. And we were still in the old main building where we could prototype and paint a lot, which was a lot of fun. But for my master's, I decided to go to Delft, and I did the master's strategic product design. I switched because I think after the bachelor, I was still looking a bit for what kind of designer I am. And for the master, you sort of needs a really clear vision on design. And what I really liked was more the fuzzy front end and really work together with a group and a client. So that's why I decided to go to Delft and try the master strategic product design there. I currently live in Rotterdam with my boyfriend and my 2 bunnies. This is Walter and this is Wilma. Really lovely to have them in the garden. But enough about me. I also added a picture of Koos where we went surfing last summer. Due to Corona, of course, we are working all at home, but we are, we like to work hard, but also have a lot of fun together. And this is one cool activity we did last summer. So I will dive a bit more into Koos, what we do. Our mission is actually a world made better by design. And we're a team full of design engineers. So we all have a background related to industrial design. Some come from Eindhoven, but most of them are from the Technical University in Delft. Our headquarters is based in Amsterdam, where we are around with 35 consultants. And we also have an office in Lisbon, where we have 5 people working there. Mainly the 2 roles that we have within Koos are service designers, but also UX designers. But we all get the freedom to dive into specific perspectives. So if you really like data, for example, we have a couple of guys really searching for new tools, how we can implement more quantitative research methods. But we also have people that are more interested in organizational design. So we get the freedom to dive into those different perspectives and disciplines to add also in our design process. We don't work in a specific industry. So we work a lot with different clients as a consultant. We work for banks, for municipalities, but also health insurances. So it doesn't really matter which complex challenge. It's more about the process that we always strive for. So we work in a lot of different industries. But the 3 things that we offer to our clients are, first of all, service design. As I already mentioned, that's our core business. And this is the part where we actually do the design research. So we talk to a lot of customers, to the client itself. They really get to understand the business and the challenges, and really get the service perspective and see where we can innovate the service in. Then we have UX design, and all the ideas that we actually get from the service design process, we use UX design to really bring those ideas to life, and that we are able to test those ideas actually also with the user. So that's also what Naomi already was talking about, really be able to prototype and test fast to validate your ideas. And then the 3rd pillar is about customer-centric transformation. So we do not only do projects for our clients, but we also give a lot of trainings and workshops so that actually our clients themselves are becoming more customer-centric. So in a couple of months, I will be working, for example, for the municipalities of Amsterdam and train them to be more customer-centric themselves and apply it in their own projects. So I was already talking a bit about the process that we follow, and this might be familiar to you. This is actually the basic process that we follow. It's called the double diamond. And here you also see sort of this service design and UX part in. So in the first diamond, you really want to solve the right problem. So you're really empathizing with your end user, really grasping what is it that we need to solve before you actually dive into the solutions, which is the second diamond, where you actually are figuring out how you might solve the problem in the right way. So this is always the process that we follow, and we use different tools and techniques within this process. And these principles are also very important during this process. So everything that we do from a user perspective. That's the first principle. Then the second one is holistic, and that really fits the service design mindset. So you don't only look at the usage phase, but you really look at the entire ecosystem. So what happens before usage and also after. The third pillar is about co-creation. During a project, we always work together with a core team of the client, but also always involve experts or relevant stakeholders along the way. The fourth one is from service to core. So this sort of matches the user-centeredness. We always start with the service. So what does the user actually see? So how do they interact with the service? And from there, we drill down to the system and processes that are needed to actually provide that service. And then the fifth one is iterative. And you all might be familiar with this. Service design is an iterative process, so it's about going through the double diamond multiple times, prototype and test, and continuously improve your IDs. Well, I know this all sounds great, but I guess you're all curious to have some evidence also in some cases, so I would like to share 3 cases with you. The first one is about the digital transformation of Eurocost. The second one is about applying circular processes in the construction industry for the municipality of Apeldoorn. And the third one is about reducing stress in pharmacies through smoother medicine switches. So the first one is about Eurocost. And Eurocost, you might, I'm not sure if, I hope not that you have contact with them, but Eurocost is an organization when you have a medical issue abroad, medical situation, and you need help, they're the ones you should call. They will support you in giving you the right treatment. They take care of all the payment process, and if necessary, they should also arrange your transport back home. And the thing is that Eurocost previously, their whole service was done via phone. So all the information that you shared with them was via email or via phone. And they really wanted to make this digital transformation and look for a way how they're were able to have also less unnecessary phone calls, because they were a lot of times busy with just reassuring people about the whole process and not necessarily about exchanging the right information. So that was the challenge. A bit about the approach. So you could definitely see the double diamond in here as well. First of all, we did the service design process. So we really interviewed people that just experience such a medical issue abroad, defining really their needs and their pains. And from there, we mapped the journey and designed an ideal one. So what is the ideal situation? What would it look like throughout the entire service? And from those ideas, we picked certain ideas and placed them in a roadmap. So which ones are really necessary to implement as fast as, soon as possible. And from that roadmap, we actually prototyped and test solutions over and over to eventually the implementation phase. So we started with the in-depth interviews, people that recently had this experience abroad, really digging into their needs. How do they experience the service of Eurocost currently, and how do they would like to see it more improved in the future? And from those interviews that we gain a lot of different insights, we actually map those and structure them, for example, in a customer journey, as you can see here. So it's always about the process itself. What does the customer actually goes through? but really add that experience to it. So what goes well, what doesn't go well. And from there, you really are able to pinpoint clear opportunities for improvement. Several ideas were there. One of them, the main thing was sort of an online patient portal for people in need. And it had several elements. So, for example, really see what Eurocos is actually doing for you in the process, but also being able to see all the contact details that you need, for example. So there were a lot of different elements in there that we met in this ideal journey, where you could see in all the drawings, throughout the entire process, think of improvements to create a better service. And from there, we actually prototype and test the improvements continuously with the user. So you have first the users in the beginning phase where you interview them, but it's really important to also ask for feedback when you have the solutions there. And eventually now the MVP of this idea is live now for Eurocos. So they are now actually gathering real data on how people react on this new solution. The second case, medicine switches. This was a project, it started off, the problem behind the medicine switches is that people, the patients themselves, get a bit confused. Why do I get a new medicine? How should I use it? But for the people in the pharmacies, it was also quite difficult to have those conversations at the desk. It could take quite a while to get people, talk them through the medicine switches. We had to find a way on how we could reduce the stress for everyone actually involved in those medicine switches. And we did this by doing interviews not only with the patients, but also with the specialists, the pharmacists, and also general practitioners. So I think that's also one of the very important elements of service design, really involving the different perspectives that are involved in the problem. So again, we defined the current journey, generated the new improvements, and again, tested those in design sprints. So design sprints are like in a week, you really want to focus on the idea, build it, test it straight away, and from there improve it. So this is an example of the journey we made. As you can clearly see, we have different lanes of the different stakeholders involved, and you really see when do they interact, when don't they, and what problems can we find in this process overview. One of the tools that we actually tested is a tool for the pharmacist to, on a communication level, how should you approach such a conversation with a patient that has a medicine switch. And also a sticker to add on the actual new medicine to explain eventually the patient why they actually have this medicine switch. And I will quickly go to the movie so you have a good idea of the project and the end result. I hope that works.
We zijn hier vandaag vanwege medicijnwissels. Voor veel patiënten in Nederland zijn medicijnenwissels echt een doorn in het oog. Maar ook voor de huisartsen en de apothekers kost het veel tijd en veel werk. En er komen vaak vervelende gesprekken door. De patiënten die weten vaak niet zo goed wat er nou aan de hand is. En dat zorgt ook voor problemen, bijvoorbeeld dat ze hun medicatie niet goed nemen. Dus tijdens de pilot die we hier draaien, hebben we een toolkit ontworpen. En die zijn we tijdens de pilot aan het testen. In die toolkit zorgen we ervoor dat het gesprek met de patiënt aan de balie zo soepel mogelijk verloopt. En we hebben ook visuele hulpmiddelen ontworpen die ervoor zorgen dat de patiënt het beter begrijpt. En dat ze thuis ook beter hun medicatie zullen nemen.
Het medicijnwisselproject is gestart omdat de gesprekken over medicijnwisselingen vaak onaangenaam kunnen zijn aan de balie. En om op een positieve manier de communicatie richting onze klanten te beïnvloeden, hebben we dit gedaan. U krijgt nu een middel wat u al had, alleen nu van een ander merk. Het resultaat, de gevolgen van dit onderzoek is dat het tijdswinst oplevert voor de medewerker. Tegelijkertijd ook een betere voorlichting en informatie voor de patiënt. En daarnaast ook een tevredener patiënt. Dus een win-win-win situatie. Ik ervaar het werken met deze tools tijdens het medicijnwisselgesprek als heel prettig. Het stelt me in staat om nog beter advies te geven en daardoor ook die klant nog beter te helpen. Hopelijk leidt dat ook tot een tevredener klant. Wat vond u van het gesprek?
Heel duidelijk, zoals je dat punt voor punt door hebt genomen. Ook met het kaartje, met de etiketwisseling. Ik vond het heel duidelijk.
We pakken dit project aan door middel van de methode van service design. Dat houdt eigenlijk allereerst in dat we luisteren naar de behoeften van de eindgebruikers. Dus we halen de inzichten op van de apotheeksassistenten en de patiënten. En die gebruiken we om verbeteringen te maken in ons ontwerp. Zo hebben we focusgroepen gehouden. De verbeteringen daarvan zie je nu terug in het ontwerp wat we testen tijdens de pilot hier in de apotheek. En we luisteren ook weer naar de feedback van de assistenten en de patiënten na deze pilot. En die verwerken we dan wederom in het ontwerp om zo tot een zo goed mogelijk resultaat te komen.
Cool. Okay. Well, at least I was able to show you the video. We have another case, but I'll skip that due to time. But please feel free to ask a lot of questions during the network part. And if you have any questions, for an internship, we have had multiple interns at us at Koos, and we don't have any vacancy ready now, but feel free always to email me or Michael for internships, just our first name and then at koosservicedesign.com. That was it.
Thank you very much, Oda. Very clear presentation again. Also very nice visuals, I have to say. As you said, no time for the third case. But again, also, if you're interested in this process, because I feel like it's a very specific process you're walking through, feel free to reach out to the people from Koos when we're actually networking, because I'm sure they love to tell you more about what they're doing. I'm going to check the questions again, because I see that a lot of questions have come in again, so that's great. Let's see. How do you map less concrete / linear customer processes during designing?
More complex processes, how do we actually map them? Good question. I think there's always a way how you can fit the process. I think the example of the medicine switches was also quite a difficult one to tackle. So you always have to keep in mind, what is it exactly that I need to get out of it? What is the goal of the way you map your insights? And in this case, it was really about those different stakeholders, how they interact, and where do we see gaps, where do we see the cycle, for example, that people go back to a first stage. So it really depends on what you find in your data and how you visualize that to gain the insights. So indeed, we are quite fixed on our methods, but you should always be flexible to use them for the goal that you actually are trying to reach. Yeah.
Very clear. And then, so another question, a bit more broad. How do you see the future of design? And then more specifically, service design? Because we already talked a bit about how it can actually change organizations.
Yeah.
What is your, or maybe Koos's vision on that?
I think what we see happening for our own role as service design consultants, previously we were quite, it was like, okay, we need a designer, or we need someone to think along, and you are really, certainly present in the design process. And what we see now is that we become more partners and also have more longer projects where we are working together with incubators or are hired for over a year to work really in a design team, and still having that perspective from without the organization also helps, but then we work together with a team of designers within the organization. So you have those both different perspectives, and we are really more the expert on the service design process. So I see that more happening, that we become more partners, still having that fresh perspective to bring in organizations, but more on the long term.
So more of like a long-term co-creation, basically. Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds like a very interesting and great,
Yeah,
great
positive
future.
change. Yeah.
Jeroen, short question for you because I mean I feel like, as I said, Koos has a very clear process or clear tools that they're using that are very customer centric. Within Canon, is this something that is familiar to you, or is this something that you think I can actually learn a lot from what Koos is doing? And I maybe have also some questions for Oda.
Yeah, no, definitely learn a lot from all of the presentations. So it's nice to see that. I think there's quite an important difference maybe that as a consultant you're really coming in from the outside, fresh look, learning about the project, also delivering to a clear end. And within Canon we're more integrated in the process, so we're really part of the R&D team. Projects are always ongoing, so there's never a clear end to it. So we're really embedded in that R&D project as designers. So yeah, it's a different world, but very interesting then to see how you explain it. But I also have a question. If I now that I'm talking anyway.
Feel free to ask.
No. No, because you mentioned the validation, of course, of the ideas, and you want an iterative process. But how do you decide when it's a good moment to test ideas? That it's sort of early enough that you can still change things, but it's also concrete enough that the users are knowing what they're seeing, what they're doing. So how do you sort of balance when to present something to the user, when to validate?
Yeah. I think that's the part that actually maybe comes after going to the first diamond. Then you really start more experimenting and de-risking your solution. So you might see first it's more about prototyping and testing, just one-on-one with your user, not the end user that's actually, that the solution is already in your service, but really first get feedback. What you also saw in the Eurocross case. And from there, start slowly to work to that MVP and maybe release first the MVP not visible to all of your end users, but first do a trial run or launch the MVP in a smaller smaller space. So you first get feedback if the solution also works in a real life situation, not only the prototyping testing phase. So yeah, that's one way to approach it.
Well, great question. I would say I saw a similar question coming in, so I think you very well translated that. Then another question I see coming in a few times, and that is, how do you manage to do this work online? Because you're working with a lot of people, of course. How have you managed to achieve the same goal, basically?
Yeah, it's still a pity that we have to work online, I would say. I really love always just being in a room together, really have that interaction. I think it takes more time online. We use a lot of Miro, so the collaboration tool online, that really helps. But you need to have more time in the beginning to get to know each other, learn each other's own goals and perspectives before you really dive into the project itself. But we do a lot, through Miro, I would say. But it's not ideal.
Yeah, no, I think it's a tool a lot of designers, design students specifically, are very familiar to now.
Yeah.
So basically what you say is that you're able to do it through Miro, but the experience is...
and also for the interviews, normally we really go to people's own places, really interview them in their own context, or do surface safaris, and that's really different now, and I hope... you still miss the sensitive information in your interview, so the nuances. So I hope that we go back soon. We'll see.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Then one last question before we move on, and that's actually coming in from Marit, which asks, have you ever faced some ethical concerns during a project you did?
Ooh, yeah, definitely. We are also working now on the Corona Check app. So that's one of ethical draak, om het maar. And in that sense, I think if you have a customer-centric approach, you already involve a lot of the ethical issues that come across. And in the Corona Check app, in that case, we are already working on the solution, and the sensitivity of the ethical questions is unfortunately not really within our scope. But I think when having already a customer-centric mind, you already take into account the different perspectives of people on the problem or the issue you're working for. Yeah. So I would say if you also, when doing interviews, keep in mind that you have those, that you really interview those different cultures, different perspectives to have a broad view on the problem.
Okay, thank you. And indeed, I think, as you just said, I also feel like it's very interesting that because you're working so customer-centric, you might even actually tackle some of these like ethical concerns within your process. So that might also be something that people can actually ask when networking. Again, thank you very much for your presentation. Another great presentation, and I would say let's take a short break again, get some more water, and then we'll be back in 5 minutes with more presentations and also the design cases. I actually see the participants from the design cases coming in now, so that's great to see. So I would say take a 5-minute break, and then we'll see each other back here. I hope you had a good break again. We're back, and after 2 very exciting and interesting presentations, it's now time for the design cases. What we'll be doing is that one by one, the 3 design cases will present what they're doing, and after that, after each presentation, we'll have a short moment for questions, both from the companies, but also you at home. So please feel free throughout the presentations to add any questions you have to the YouTube channel, so that I can actually ask them to the participants. As explained already, these teams are not just here, they first had to compete in a race before this. So each company presented the case over a month ago, and a lot of excited groups were able to send in their ideas and actually show their ideas on these challenges. These 3 teams you'll see tonight have been the winners of these separate cases and will now compete against each other. Who will eventually win is in your hands, because after all cases, you'll get the chance to vote via a link, and with this vote you can actually choose which team will win the prize. I also already have an interesting prototype here, so I'm very curious what will be happening. But before we jump in, I would like to do a short energizer, because I know from digital events it can sometimes be a little tiring, you get a little bit stiff. So it's a classic, it's 8 shakes on the left, 8 shakes on the right. And also for you guys, you've been sitting for a while, so feel free to also shake it up a bit. So we'll start on the left, and basically all we do is 1, 2, and then 8 times. Yeah? Okay, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I almost feel like a personal trainer. On the other side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. Very short energizer, but just to get the blood a little bit streaming again. Well, then I would like to invite the first design case from DLL. And I'm very curious what this prototype will entail. So I would say, DLL case, you can come forward and show us what you build.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So working from home is hard. I'm constantly looking at my screen, and my personal life is mixed with my work life more than ever. But besides that, I also miss the spontaneous moments with my colleagues. Before the pandemic, I had these coffee machine moments, where I could disconnect from work and have spontaneous random moments with others. These random moments could spark creativity and, of course, improve the social relationships. How great would it be if I could find those moments again? That is the design case that DLL gave us, and what we started to work on. Our focus was to disconnect employees from their work and connect them with colleagues through small, spontaneous, random moments. We designed a system called Prikkie that creates a mental disconnect for employees by printing small notes through this printer at random moments. By linking every employee to another employee for the duration of 1 working day, a conversation can take shape through these tiny notes. Employees can send messages to the others in their own time, and the system will only print when it thinks it needs to print. To assist this conversation, the system can also send cues to one of the employees by printing a small note at a random moment. These notes are not related to work, but rather to social cohesion between other employees, just like those coffee machine moments. These small notes can have different templates and sometimes require a small action. So let's go through a small scenario. Let's say I have had 3 meetings in a row and the system thinks I could use a break. So it starts printing a note that another colleague sent me. For instance, the question, where do you live? Well, at that moment, I can choose to respond. So what I'll do, I can take a note here, write an answer to it, scan it using the scanner app, and then it will be sent to the other person. The printer will only print at the other person when it thinks that person needs a break, for instance. So I already talked about those cues. So sometimes the system can actually send a small cue to enhance the conversation. These cues can be anything, just like puzzles or small messages. So on the slides you can see a puzzle, for instance, but also maybe other messages from or questions from other co-workers. So to summarize, Pricky will create random social moments to let employees disconnect from their work for a small moment. We believe a system like this can improve the social cohesion and support employees of a company during these weird times. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I think definitely a great presentation to begin with and a very great prototype, I have to say. Let's do some questions. Naomi, I would like to start with you. You're here, of course, from the DLL innovation team. So do you have any questions about the prototype or maybe things that came up in your mind while you were watching the presentation?
Yeah, I have 2 questions because you explained that it will print sometimes. You said when you have 3 meetings, then maybe it can print. Does this mean that Pricky knows your calendar, your Outlook? Is it connected there? Or?
Yeah, so we believe that this system would indeed know your schedule and know when you need a small break.
All right.
Yeah.
And let's say that in a couple of months we want to deploy this. Similar question we asked in the other cases, the session before. Can we do that? Do you have the
Yeah, so it's the set. We actually even made it a bit simpler than last time. So we now just have the printer, which is a very cheap printer you can get anywhere. And then we have the app, which can just use to scan. And we made a box around it. So yeah, if you can implement it, we can.
So you have the app, you have the box. If we say
we don't have the app yet, but yes,
Okay.
if you want it, we can build it, of course.
Okay, okay, that's okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Very critical questions. And I have another one on YouTube, actually. So why work on paper and then scan it? Thinking about the environment.
Yeah, so we actually like the idea of having these notes that you can actually put on your prickboard. You can actually see your conversation with others, but also the sound of the printer actually pulls you out of that moment where you're working. So that's why we actually chose to do it on paper, and also because most of the times you are already on your computer when you work. So to also pull you away from the work, which is on the computer, we also need a separate system where you can use just notes instead of thinking about work. So it's actually to really pull out an employee from their daily work into this conversation.
Very clear answer and very well thought through, actually.
Thank you.
So that's great. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. It's very short, but that's what happens when we have a full night. So I would say thank you very much. And as explained, at the end, when all 3 presentations have been, you as the crowd will be able to vote on your favorite idea. And this favorite team, will win a prize of 500 euros. So we're talking about an actual real prize here. So let's go on to the next presentation. And again, thank you very much for the great prototype and the great presentation.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again later tonight. Then the next presentation, because we'll immediately go through with the next one, is Renate, which will talk us through the Canon design case. Jeroen is here to very critically look and also ask some questions afterwards. I see you actually matched the green, so that's a good first step. I would say good luck and enjoy the presentation.
Oh, can I use this to... do the presentation. Yes, all right. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Renate, and I'm going to present our ideas on this design case. So I'm here on behalf of my group, Nick, Annabelle, Roos, and me. So the design case. The design case is about the Arizona printer series. This is a printer that can, amongst other things, do 2.5D printing, flatbed printing, or elevated printing. And this means that this printer can, by stacking multiple layers of ink on top of each other, print interesting textures and relief, just as you can see on these pictures here. And it can also print on different materials, so not only paper, but also wood, plastic, glass, you name it, metal. In the current workflow, they have the means to use several graphical software tools to create these kind of prints, to design these kind of prints. But they are looking for new ways to define and visualize the desired outcome. And Canon is looking for other ways to shape the application that the customer would like to have. So therefore, we set as our design goal to create a visualization tool that allows the user to experiment with different materials, structures, and layers to create the desired print application. Okay, so first, the values that we thought were very important in this case are a creativity boost for the end users that create these prints, to increase the reliability as customers aren't always as confident with what they are going to print, and to include some tangibility, as currently the software is only on a laptop, so yeah, you're only behind the screen, so we wanted to include some tangibility and interactivity. All right, so first, the stakeholders in this situation. First, you have Canon that sells a printer to a print provider, and then the print provider makes prints for the end user. To give an example, a print provider can, for example, be an interior design company, and the end user can be you or me that wants a nice design in your house with 2.5D printing. All right, so we created a customer journey. I will quickly go through it. So first, Canon sells a printer to the print provider. Then the end user chooses the print provider. Then the end user uses the graphical software tools to create a print. Then the print provider and end user deliberate and discuss the printing options and the design. And in the end, the print is printed. So what we thought was interesting to intervene was in this experimenting phase between the end user and the print provider. And also Canon facilitates this cooperation and design phase. And we thought it was interesting to intervene here, as we thought it lacked a bit of a creativity boost and tangibility and cooperation. So we have designed a service that you can see here. That is interfering at this moment, that helps the customer to go through this process of creating a print. It's on the website. You can use it on a PC, smartphone, whatever. And the most important thing is that we have 4 concepts that help you go through this process of creating a print. This process is also visualized here. The app guides you in and helps you to tell you what concept you should use at what moment in the whole process. So first, I will explain to you the 4 concepts that we have. I will start by using the preview fan. So this is a fan type of thingy with multiple textures on it, and this gets sent home to the end customer, so that you get an impression of what the printer can make, what kind of textures it can make, and kind of gets you inspired on what the possibilities are. And also by using an AR app, you get to see what a certain print does with a certain relief. Multiple prints here. So second, at this moment, the customer should have an idea of what the printer is capable of. And next up, I'm going to show you the AI video preview, which shows you, by means of AI, what your print will look like in 3D. So just to give you an impression what it will look like. Then we have the iPad AR preview. And here you get the possibility to kind of see this print in different situations. So for example, if you want to print the milkmaid on wall or whatever, you get to see what these different sizes do, what different locations do, and yeah, this is a very quick way of experimenting and yeah, seeing what you can do with these designs. And lastly, the projection-based previewing. So at this time, at this moment, you should have an idea of what your print will look like and also where you can apply it on, also in what kind of materials you can apply it on. And then it's time for the last kind of cooperation moment where you work together, the print provider and the end user. You work together and we have designed a projection table that shows your design on like big scale. And here you can interactively work together and kind of do the final adjustments on the design. And yeah, and this stimulates the cooperation between the two parties. So to sum up, we have created a service that intervenes in the customer journey to help the end customer and the print provider in the process of creating a print. And yeah, that's our design. So thanks for listening. I hope it was clear. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that
Yes,
great
you're
presentation.
welcome.
Again, great graphics, so credits, and also a great presentation. I think the idea was very clear.
Yeah.
Johan, I would like to start with you from Canon. Do you have any questions for this team or any specific things that popped up in your mind during the presentation?
Yeah, well, we've spoken to them twice before, and first of all, really impressed with the amount of work you've done in such short time, so good job for that. Also, you're up to some tough competition, because the previous group actually had a printer there.
Yeah.
But now I think my only question would be, because you spent quite some time on it now thinking about the concept, but what would you like in your house, knowing these capabilities?
What do you mean? For like a print, like a design?
If you would be the end customer, what would you want?
Ooh, I would want some nice designs for on my wall, I think, in my room. I don't know what exactly, but...
Got the tools now to explore.
Yeah, indeed, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And very personal question to to start the question round with. I have some questions in the chat, and actually, I see some very enthusiastic designers about the samples that you will get. So, so that's great. The first question is, I assume you can print all kind of textures you want. How do you deal with that when providing physical samples?
Yeah, so that's kind of hard. So our idea was to just provide some ideas so the customer can at least have an impression of what the possibilities are. Also for us, when we were designing, we had no idea what this printer could do. So if we would, for example, have like 5 possibilities, just 5 examples, that would already help the customer to see like what there is, just to give an impression and to boost creativity.
Yeah. Okay, very clear. And then the last question is, first of all, really awesome idea. And then, does the scan app, already work?
No. We did some nice photoshopping, so no, it doesn't work. We used the famous Wizard of Oz technique for our prototype.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Yeah. Again, great job and really well presentation.
Yes.
We'll jump on to the next one. So thank you, Renate, and we'll see you later again. And then we'll go on to the last presentation of the design cases, and this is the one from Signify. We have Koen here with his very critical eye to also take a look at this next presentation. And I would say good luck. I see you're getting in position, so good luck. Again, you can vote afterwards, so prize for 500 euros. Look closely, because this is a great prize, and the teams have done a lot of work to actually stand here. So enjoy the presentation, and I'll ask you some questions afterwards.
Yeah, okay, great. Oh, yeah, so hi, I'm Fabienne Krantz. Here you can already see a little bit of a sneak peek. But can you design around outdoor light chains? That was actually the question that Signify asked. And in the end, I think I've interpreted it pretty literally. So I started with the assumption that these light chains are hard to hang up, and also that they all look quite the same. So I went ahead and interviewed, I put out a survey to some users. And indeed, they thought it was, they all looked the same, and also it was a pain to install. And I don't think I'd like how they would look in my home. One in particularly mentioned that it would have to be eco-friendly for her to buy it. Some advantages were very much the versatility of it, so you can hang it up anywhere you like, and also the ambience that it gives. Well, taking these insights, that is how LightBranch was born. So LightBranch is basically a case for these light chains that you can also move around, so it's very versatile. And it's made of lightweighted aluminum, so you can actually also move it. It's 170 meters for reference. And these green bulb-like things, they are like these flowers that are about to pop, or leaves. Those are made by 3D printing with an algae-based filament, so it's also eco-friendly. Next to that, because it's 3D printed at Signify, it's also customizable. And moreover, I put like a new style to it. So you can see the difference between the light chains, which is very flexible and almost shapeless. And on the other hand, this very minimalistic, elegant, biophilic design. So it becomes really a new lamp. Here you can see what I mean, that you can actually pull out the light chain. So it's two halves clicked on via magnets. And also the leaves can be clicked on. So it's also modular. And it can fit in a variety of interiors, and here are some examples. Also in apartments, it can be very handy because of this multifunctionality. And when you have a party and you want some ambience, you just pull it out, and afterwards you can just put it back in like a case for this light chain. So this is what I mean with the algae-based material. So this is an example. It was made by a studio Klarenbeek and Dros. It is made of this dried algae seaweed. The exact composition is still a bit unknown. I'm trying to reach them, but I found another alternative which was not transparent, but it consists of 20% algae and 80% the well-known bio-based PLA. And it comes in a variety of colors. So as for the aluminum pole, is recycled aluminum. It can be extruded for the long part. So it's actually heated and then pushed through a shape. So you have this minimum amount of waste. And also the foot, which is cold deformed. It's basically cone rolling. So here are some circularity aspects. So the algae-based filament is bio-based and also biodegradable. Because it's customizable, it also adds to the durability on an emotional level, because people are less inclined to throw it away. Also, the waste is reduced because of using this recycled aluminum, which actually 95% less energy than it would with regular aluminum. Because it's modular, it can also be easily disassembled and therefore also recycled. The 3D printing and also the aluminum can be done locally, so this way you can also reduce the CO2 footprint. And as for the aluminum, it will have an anodized finish, which is one of the more user-friendly, the environmentally friendly ways of finishing this metal, because the solution, electrolytical solution, can be reused and recycled. So with this project, the network is also broadened because of these materials. And also the service and customer engagement is added on because of this customizability. And the material, the green material, also gives this brand a more sustainable look. Then a little bit about the business model. So the furniture market is quite big, but the lighting market is of course a little bit smaller. Going internationally would increase the viability. I made a quick calculation on the cost, so including the production, staff expenses, marketing, and also rent for storage for a year, which would be above 33,000. Then taking a look at the high-end market and taking a low competitive price of 500. If I would sell 100 pieces, I would already have a profit. So this way, we can provide elegant and versatile lighting solutions that bring this flexibility, this shapelessness of these light chains together with more innovative biophilic and minimalistic design, which also contributes to circularity. So that's Lightbranch, an innovative case for light chains. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very clear presentation. I think you put a lot of different insights in there and also very sexy renders. I think that's also something a lot of industrial design students really like. So Koen, I would like to start with you from Signify. I saw you laughing a bit in the middle. Do you have some questions for this specific case or for the specific idea?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for this extensive work. Also for the other teams which were in the competition before. But I see almost a full project coming out. Including the business plan and even a customer I saw in the upper left corner. So somebody who's probably a key customer or key.
Oh yeah, defining the customer.
That's always a very important thing, that you know who's interested in this kind of products. And I see the elements of sustainability. That's really key for us. And you brought in recycling of aluminium. That is also a very good case to dig in. But my question is, what should we do next? What's the next phase of this? What do you recommend to us?
To realize this?
Yeah. What's necessary?
Well, looking more into the specifics of this production, I took a little bit of a draft of how it is possible to make it. But of course, I took an assumption of having 100 pieces. For instance, maybe this goes up to make it actually profitable. And maybe it turns out that the extrusion profile is much more expensive. So looking into that, I think, is the first step. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think, as an consumer, as an end user, do I have to attach the LED chain, or do we have to do it as a company, as Signify? Is this an action? Is the module attachment to the lamp you design? Is that something with an end consumer does, like the IKEA products are mostly done like that? Mm-hmm. Or is that, in your vision, is that part of what we have to provide to the end customer?
Well, I would say it would be 3 parts, so the 2 halves and the light chain apart. So you can discover it yourself, like, oh, it's in this thing. But on the other hand, maybe it's also fun to have it in one go, and then you open it up and you see, oh, this light chain. That could be either way. I think would be pretty cool.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for your questions. Then I have a question on YouTube, which is from Geert, and he asks, will the bulbs give green light? Is this a more desirable look instead of a normal color temperature?
Well, the light chains that I found were actually pretty white, a little bit of yellow, but of course with the green caps on it, it would be a little bit more green. But yeah, of course you also saw the different colors, so you have this yellow color as well, so there are possibilities there. Okay,
thank you very much for the great presentation.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of smiling faces, so again, that's definitely a good job. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, there were some great presentations. I honestly have to say I'm really impressed by the work all the teams did. I think that ID Connect has been happening for a lot of years, and I feel like every year we see more and more complete ideas. We see business models, we see prototypes. And I think this is definitely also showing what Jesse said at the beginning, that we as designers are really able to take that next step and to really look ahead and actually start crafting the ideas we have. So teams, great job. I'm really impressed. And looking here in the presentation room, I see also a lot of impressed faces. So I think that's something good. Then next up is actually your job, and that is voting on who will be the winner of these 3 cases. Of course, we understand that they are really different. We've gone from service design to product design and something in between. So the question is now, which of these 3 do you as a designer find most interesting, most exciting, or maybe most desirable? How you will vote is actually quite simple. In the chat, we will send a link to the voting Google Forms. Here you see the 3 teams, and you can select one of the teams. Of course, you can vote only one time, and I would say vote on the team again that you think did the best job or did the most exciting one. I understand that you might be impressed by all 3 of them because they were really great, but choose the one that speaks most to you. At the end of this evening, after we've had the networking round, we'll come back to the votes, we'll check who actually got the most votes, and this team will be the winner of ID Connect 2021, and we'll go home with the prize of 500 euros. So take your time for that. At the same time, we will go to the networking round. We've been talking about it a lot, about all the questions you had. There are, again, a lot of questions in the chat on YouTube. So I think you're probably very excited to actually start talking to these people and start talking to these companies. What we will do is we will use Wonder. Wonder might be new for some of you, but it's a really easy tool in which you can basically move around in a room with other people. You can also find the link in the chat, and you can easily enter by typing in your name. What you basically do is you are able to, both with your mouse and with your keyboard, move through the room and go through the different companies that are there. From each company, there will be a few people that will be able to talk with you, to answer questions, and to also discuss whatever is on your mind after these exciting presentations. This will be 20 minutes, and after 20 minutes, we'll be back with the final award, with a presentation from ASML, and also some other exciting things like the suit. Because I said this at the beginning, but you might have forgotten it a bit by now. You can actually win a suit for 250 euros, which is quite a great price, I would say. Again, at the end of this evening, there will be a questionnaire with a lot of questions about all the different companies. This can be about the presentations we already had. These can be about the design cases. But this can also be facts that you can't actually find on this evening, but we'll have to ask to the companies. So make sure to ask any questions you have to the companies, and hopefully you'll ask the right questions to actually answer the questionnaire. For now, I would say go to Wonder, maybe grab a fast drink if you are really thirsty, and start networking. And then I'll see you back in 20 minutes, and then we'll dive into the rest of the program. Enjoy. And we're back. I hope everyone had some good time to network, have some talks with the companies, and ask the questions they wanted to ask. Looking here, did you have some good talks in the networking time?
Yeah,
Yeah?
Yeah.
Great to hear.
Some issues with Wonder, but I had some discussions, but maybe I missed some people, but that's the system.
That's okay, because we'll have more time at the end of the event to maybe have some more talks. Oda, you were very enthusiastic, yes? You had some good talks?
Yeah, a lot about the role of a consultant, how much do you balance that with being a facilitator and really giving your opinion, and the relationship with the client that you have, also working digitally, how do you sort of make everyone comfortable to also show their own opinion, and lots of fun discussions. Definitely.
Great to have some in-depth conversations already, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, as said before, we started networking. This was also the voting round, so I hope you all had the chance to vote, because this will be the final seconds before we will actually close the voting. All 3 teams have worked very hard to actually get here to show their presentations. As said, we're all really impressed with what they were doing and how they were actually able to translate these ideas into actual products, actual services, and actual prototypes. And now it's almost time. I see some scared faces behind the desk. The votes are closed. Let's take a moment, and in a second, Mirta will come to me with the result. Okay, yeah, I see you're coming. So that means that we will know who is the winner of ID Connect 2021, and who will actually go home with that 500 euros. As already said, all teams did a very great job. They've really shown their potential and skills as a designer, and I think it's very important to, even for the teams that are maybe not even here, and specifically the teams that are here but that might not win, it's really important to say that they all did a very good job. And this is actually portfolio material, but then made not throughout an entire project, but in 2 or 3 weeks. Let me take a look. Okay. Can we have a small waffle? And the winner of ID Connect 2021 is Team Canon. Renate, congratulations. Also to the rest of your team. I have a very big check for you here. Sadly, it's not 1.5 meters, but it will do. Smile to the camera there to make sure we capture this enthusiastic moment. Awesome. Well, also at home, a big applause. Sadly, you won't hear it, but I'm sure that that you'll get a lot of reactions afterwards. All teams, thank you very much for participating and for also creating these great ideas. Looking at the people here, I feel like you might be going further in this conversation, even though you didn't win the prize, so that's also great. Thank you very much, Renate. And if there are any questions for Renate still, then you can also ask them in the next networking round. One last applause. Okay, great. Well, then it's time for the last presentation of the evening already, and this will be ASML. And ASML is a high-tech company from the Netherlands, and you might know them because they're actually from Veldhoven, which is very close to Eindhoven. ASML makes machines on which chips are made. So practically every electric device you use, this can be your iPhone, this can be your fridge, almost all of these chips are started on an ASML machine. And Joey will be online to tell us more about this company and also answer some questions you might have about the company and how it is to be as a designer within such a big tech company. So I'd like to give the screen to Joey in this case. And then again, please feel free to ask any questions on YouTube during the presentation so that afterwards we can have a chat with Joey and ask some of these questions. Enjoy.
Hello everybody, my name is Joey van Den. I'm a UX system architect at ASML, and today I would like to tell you a little story about ASML and the what and the why of UX design in that company. But before I start, let me first explain a little bit about myself. I'm 33 years old and I'm still living in Eindhoven with my wife. And I was born and raised in the Netherlands, actually in a small village in the neighborhood of Breda. And after high school, I actually went to Eindhoven. I moved to Eindhoven to pick up the study of industrial design, which you of course all know very well. So I started there in 2005 and reached my master's degree in 2012. And during that whole process, I've been quite active at the university. So I actually also did a board year at Lucid, and I've spent quite some energy on organizing stuff for the Dutch Design Week. And I've also been involved in the Faculty Council for Industrial Design. So after my studies at Industrial Design, I joined a different company, worked there for a few years, but now, since 2.5 years ago, I've joined ASML as a user experience system architect. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about our company. Well, as you might know, because it's a big company in the neighborhood, of course, ASML is in the business of microchips, and I'm pretty sure you have a good feeling of what microchips mean to the current world and to the innovation that is happening all around us, right? It's very hard to imagine a world without microchips at the moment. And ASML is actually a key player in the creation of those microchips because we make the machine that makes these microchips. And to give you a little bit of history, we're not a very old company. We started in 1984 with just 31 employees, spinning off from Philips to work on ventures in the microchip industry. And well, a lot of history, of course, but we're now here. We're a huge company. We are actually the biggest company, the biggest tech company in Europe. And all of the major chip makers in the world use our technology. So Samsung, Sony, TSMC, Intel, Micron, those kind of companies all rely on our technology for their processes in making chips. And we're of course a very innovative company. We have a huge annual R&D budget of 2.2 billion euros, and a small part of that goes of course into building better user experience for our users. Now, ASML is a big company. We have 28,000 employees all over the world, with big parts in the US and Asia and here in Europe. But we're very international and widespread. And now, if you look to our industry, so the industry of microchips, it's simple to imagine, of course, where that's all heading. You see that years ago it was a special thing if you had a personal computer. Well, we're now in the process that everybody has their own personal computer in their pocket, but even things are getting their own computers. The Internet of Things is booming. We see a lot of developments in the automotive, in self-driving cars, etc. So that it's a booming industry with years and years of innovation still ahead of itself, and yeah, we as ASML play a key part in that. And you might have heard about Moore's Law. Now, Moore's Law is kind of the driving law behind ASML's practice. And it says something about the scaling factors of semiconductors. So the first integrated circuit that was ever made on a silicon wafer was about the size of a fingernail and only had a few transistors. Now, fast forward 60 years into the future, and we're actually putting billions of transistors on that same area. So we're shrinking the amount, shrinking the size of the transistors to put more compute power on the same area of a chip, making them faster, making them cheaper, making them better for all intents and purposes. And this whole process of making these chips smaller, there's a highly critical process in that, and that's called lithography, and that's the part of the process that we as ASML build the machines for. And if you look to an ASML machine, it's basically a big slide projector, right? We take a slide that holds the design for the chip, and we shoot high-powered lasers through that slide and through a lot of lenses, and project that very precisely on a silicon wafer. Now we do that, and we build that up in multiple layers. So time and time, this wafer goes through our system to build that microchip. And actually, if you look at the structures of this microchip, that microchip that we make tens or hundreds on one of these wafers, if you really zoom into those structures, it looks a lot like kind of a city, right? There's all kinds of connections and lines running over on top of each other. And yeah, you guys probably, being at industrial design, have some experience in making your own prototypes, right? Working with Arduinos and soldering things together. Well, you probably know that if one wire is disconnected, the whole thing breaks down. The whole thing doesn't work. And the same holds for microchips. So if one of these connections in this microchip is in the wrong place, the whole chip fails. And that's why this process is so highly precise in nature. And it also brings me to the discussion, why UX at ASML? Well, this whole process of creating that microchip is quite a complex one. So we only do a small part of it, and after it leaves our system, it goes into all kinds of different processes. The wafer gets baked and etched and implanted with ions, and then new material is added, and then it's polished and grinded down, and then it needs to go back into our machine, and we have to put the same or a new design with pinpoint accuracy on the same spots. So it's yeah, there's a lot of technical complexity behind this process, and you can imagine that there's a lot of tweaking and tuning going on to get it just right, to make sure that the chips actually work. So if we take a little distance of that process, we abstract it a little bit, and then for our users it looks a lot like this. So we have machines that expose these wafers, and then they get developed, and after developing, these wafers get measured in metrology tools, which are essentially very big microscopes that create a lot of data. And then a lot of external steps happen to these wafers, and we measure them again, and then they go back for the next layers into the exposure machines. And you can imagine that these machines need control, right? The control for these machines need to be tweaked, and that happens on the basis of that data that gets collected. But all these machines and all these control loops have a lot of settings, millions of settings to get right. And that's why, of course, our users also do a lot of analytics on this data, right? We have people looking at the data to understand it, to mine it for insight, to find out how they can make slightly better settings to make slightly better chips. And then this whole process repeats and repeats and repeats for each of the 100+ layers that a chip is made up of. So again, a highly complex process, and not even only a highly complex process, but also a process that takes a long time and that a lot of people are involved in. So if you look to this process, you see that there are many different users. Part of them are in our customers' environment, so they're customer engineers, but also ASML engineers are part of this process at the customer to create these better chips. And every few years, a new generation of chips is created, and this is a period of multiple years of fine-tuning these processes until the production is actually yielding good chips. You can imagine that this is a very interesting user base to design for, and an interesting complex problem to solve for our users, to help them to go faster in coming to these new chip designs, and to help them to make less mistakes, to help them make better chips. So there's a lot of interesting challenges on the UX side. And talking about UX challenges, UX at ASML is quite a challenging environment, because you can imagine a very big part of our company is highly technical, right? So we've also been very successful with technology. That's where our success comes from. We've been we have a lot of sales and we're earning a lot of money as ASML because we have the best technology. And in a lot of cases where you see that technology is so important, the user becomes a bit less important. And that's also visible in the history of ASML, but that's our challenge currently, is to change that and to show ASML the importance also of the stuff that we as industrial designers can add to product development processes. And we're really succeeding in that, I would like to add, because over the last few years I've really seen our company ASML grow from highly technological focus to more and more getting a feeling of what users need and how we can make our users happier, but also more effective and efficient, etc. So we're really going through a change, and you see that because we're using usability now as a KPI in our product development. We're investing in getting more UX research in place, really studying what users do in their own environment. And we're actually also growing our UX team. So we already have quite a few UX professionals working in ASML, but we see that we're really hiring more and more because the need is really there. And our dream is, of course, to come to a user-centered organization, really where well, the user is part of any decision that gets made about the products that we develop. And that's where I want to wrap this up. So yeah, I'm speaking to you here because I think ASML is an awesome company to work for. I really think we're doing great stuff in a very innovative industry. And we're also, well, looking for people, right? We're looking to expand. We're looking to attract talent, to find people like you guys. Yeah, and that's why I hope that as part of this story, at some point in your future, when you're looking for a job, you might think about ASML for a bit, and perhaps even we see each other in the future. And leaving off with a slide about what it is that we're looking for, and I think this is a great match with what industrial design teaches and what industrial designers have to offer. Is, well, we need people that are proactive and self-starting. We need people that have the capability to understand users in highly complex environments. But we also need people that help us build the importance of the user, right? So building awareness about users' needs and about UX practices, and all the while doing so while relying mainly on soft skills, right? Relying on not having the power, not being the decider, but relying on influencing the deciders with your convincing powers, with your storytelling, and with your own professionalism. So with that, I thank you, and perhaps there are some questions for me.
Well, that was once again a great presentation by Joey. Again, digitally, but I think he really had a clear message and also clearly showed how you can actually, as a designer, have a lot of impact in such a big company. So I think we have Joey also digitally to ask some questions. I'm looking at the tech team. Yes. Hey, Joey. How are you doing?
Hey. Very good. Yourself?
Great to hear. I'm also fine. It's very cozy here, so that's great. I have some questions for you. First of all, thank you very much for your presentation. Again, I think you had a clear message about the complexity of ASML and how designers can actually play a very important role in that. And the question I would like to start with is actually something that we just also discussed with Naomi and Oda, and that is, how do you as a designer communicate your ideas to these really tech-driven people and people that are maybe not familiar with the design language? Do you have certain strategies for that?
Yeah. There's two strategies. I'll start with the shortest one. The first is put it in numbers, right? We see a lot of highly technical people who get convinced when they see the data. So we're really trying to collect a lot of data about the effect of our ideas in terms of usability, make it measurable, and prove that our ideas work. But that's the boring part of the question. I think the most important part of the question is actually involve them, right? Make sure it's not only your idea, it's not your idea as the industrial designer in the team. Make sure that everybody who gets to decide, everybody who has an opinion, everybody who has insight is part of the creation of those ideas, so that everybody feels the ownership over them. It's easy to think somebody else's idea is a stupid idea, but if you were part of conceptualizing the idea, then it's your idea. So why wouldn't you support your own idea? So it's really what I meant with using your soft skills to influence. Make sure you involve people. Invite them to be part of your processes. Invite them in your workshops, in whatever things that you do to come to your ideas, and make them be part of it.
Very clear. Okay, thank you. I think again it's very interesting to see all these different perspectives on working with companies that don't know the language, and actually different strategies how you can communicate your ideas and indeed also co-create in that sense. Then I get a question here that is, how will an internship at ASML look like?
Good question. Yeah, depends, of course, on who you are, what you're looking for, and also what phase of your studies you're in. We've recently had a UX intern who did something which was really related to the UI design part, so really in creating better user interfaces. But I could also imagine we would have internships on improving our service. So we do a lot of customer service as ASML, and I think that those processes could benefit a lot from service design thinking. I also imagine that there's a lot to be gained in co-creation, in UX research. So yeah, really depends on what you're looking for. There's so much to do in terms of UX in ASML, and sometimes as an intern you can open doors that are closed to the actual employees. So yeah, I think that's really nice. You could be very creative.
Yeah, that sounds great, specifically for a designer to be creative. So I have a question from Lars, which asks, where do the projects you work on originate from? And what is the average scope of those projects?
Oh, that's a bit of a broad question. Well, let me talk about my current project. So something that I've been working on for the last 1.5 years and probably will be working on for the next few years. It originates from research. So it originates from, our own need-finding processes, which were actually a pilot, right? As I said, we're growing UX in ASML as a company, and it was first a pilot to start doing UX research in a proper way at our customers. And we found a lot of stuff that was wrong with our current products, and we started evangelizing this, right? We started making others in our organization, our stakeholders, the people that make the decisions, understand all the crap that we put our users through. And from that, we started developing together with all these stakeholders, starting doing design thinking workshops and such. And it actually now amounted in a very big project, which will last for many years, that we're working on with hundreds of people. So you can see that it originated from the user-centered design process. And I think that's very cool, because it proves that even in a highly technical environment, there's a huge need for industrial designers.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you very much for that answer. Then I have a question from Nadine, which asks, to what extent is it necessary to understand the details of the chip-making process to design for it?
Also a very good question. Again, the answer is depends, right? What your exact role is. You can imagine when you're a UX researcher, you need to empathize with the users a lot, and then it really helps to understand those details. And for me as a UX architect, so I'm more in charge of the high level of the product vision and how it connects to the users and their world. For me, it's very important to understand those processes. But we also have UI designers who work more on the details of UIs, who can basically get away with a bit less in-depth knowledge. But you have to accept that as an industrial designer or as a UX professional, you will probably never know as much about the domain as your users do, because they have sometimes more than one PhD in physics, right? So there's no competing with the user in that respect. But it helps.
Yeah, very clear. And I completely understand. I think that is specifically within such a complex context, the challenge you'll always be working with. Then another question, which we also already discussed a bit with Oda, which was about mapping complex processes. Because, of course, tools like the customer journey, service blueprint are things that are generally used within service design. But when you're working on such a large scale, I can imagine that it's really difficult to actually map out all these processes. So how do you go around this? Or what strategies do you use to actually map out these complex processes?
Yeah, well, we just start somewhere, right? and start doing it. Yeah, it's a very understandable question, and I recognize the difficulty there. It is difficult also because each of our customers has a different process, right? We don't have a lot of customers because there's not a lot of chip makers in the world, but each of them have developed over the years their own processes. So we really need to be building these customer journeys basically really per individual customer. Yeah, we just try to go into the environment and study it, talk to people and map it out. And it is very big and it is very complex, and we have to work with gaps. Designing to design is to make decisions based on too little information, and yeah, sometimes it's even less than too little, but that's then at least you know what to study next. But also, yeah, you have to make some decisions based on information that's still missing.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Very clear. That was also the last question. So Joey, I would really like to thank you for the great presentation and also for joining us for some questions. I see some more questions in the chat. So for the people that still have questions about ASML or maybe being a designer within ASML, again, there will be a networking round at the end of this evening where you again will have some time to ask questions to Joey and to dive a little bit deeper into the design process of ASML. So Joey, thanks a lot, and we'll see you later on Wonder.
All right, thank you.
Well, then it's time, because this was our last presentation, sadly. I think we've had a lot of interesting presentations, both from the companies, also the design cases, and hopefully also got a lot of inspiration again for what you can actually do as an industrial designer and the different ways you can focus on different things. What we will do next is that we'll open the questionnaire for the suit that we've been talking about all evening, and then you'll have a short break of 5 minutes to get some water and actually fill in this questionnaire. Afterwards, we'll wrap up, we'll have a final few thoughts, and then you again have some time to network with the companies. So if you still have questions for the companies, maybe not related to the questionnaire, but just because you're very interested, I suppose you are, then this is the perfect time after this presentation and after finishing up here to ask more questions. So for now, for the winning of the suit, which is a suit supply suit for 250 euros, you can enter the link which we put in the description. There was some difficulty before with putting it in the chat, so just to be sure, you can find it in the description or the biography of this YouTube video. What you can do is that you can fill this in. It's a small set of questions, as said, related to what we heard tonight about the companies and also maybe some conversations you had closer with the companies. And when we'll get back from the break, we'll actually see who won. If there are different winners, then we'll see who of these winners will actually win the suit. And from there on, we'll go on. So I would say good luck with the questionnaire. Get yourself a good drink, and then I'll see you back in 5 minutes. And there we are again. I hope you had a good break and you had some time to actually fill in all the questions. Some might be a bit easier, some might still be a little bit difficult, even after all these presentations and all this networking. So I'm very curious to see what your answers were. We'll now close the voting. So I'm looking at the back and I see, okay, so we're closing it right now. And well, again, this is a suit for 250 euros, which is actually very great. It's Suit Supply. I'm actually wearing Suit Supply, so take notice. And I would say, yes, that was it. Okay, the lines are closed. Very idols-like. So I hope everyone was able to actually fill in these answers. And while in the background they're looking who actually won the prize, I would like to ask a last question to the companies, because of course we've had some great speakers tonight that brought a lot of interesting insights and also shared some of their experiences. So one by one I would like to ask you, is there one last tip you would like to give to the students at home, to the industrial designers from all years basically, to get further in their professional career? Naomi, I would like to start with you.
All right, I'll just repeat myself what I said before because I think it's really important. I would stress that whenever you have a conversation with a company in a design context or outside of a design context, keep learning as your main objective in order to find an opportunity for them and for you. So learning is the thing. Good luck.
Thank you very much. I definitely think that's a great tip. It also resonates a lot with what we've heard tonight. Then for you, Koen?
Yeah, you have so many opportunities. We heard here this evening the different companies, different styles. But keep learning, but keep also making, because you're great in making. That's really nice. That you should be yourself in making. Continue like that.
Yeah, that sounds like a great mantra. Keep learning, keep making. Oda, for you?
I think one thing that I learned really at Koos from interviewing, one thing we always say, just fall in love with your customer or your end user. Just during interviewing, be curious, ask a lot of open questions, whether it's your end user or a stakeholder in your project. Just fall in love with them and be open and curious to learn. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Also a very good tip for every designer, I think. And then lastly, you, Jeroen?
Yeah, my biggest switch I had to make for myself, that as a student I was really used to doing everything myself. It's your project, you do everything. But the switch I had to make is that you're now part of a process, and if you really become part of the process, so with other R&D people, other stakeholders, people from the business side, if you're part of the process, then they'll trust you as well, that you know what you're doing as a designer. So you're not external, but really embedded in that group.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for those great insights. I think that as last tips, these are very powerful things to actually focus on as designers. And also, again, for the people at home, I can imagine that you still have a lot of questions. So you'll have the networking round afterwards, but if you'd like to dive a little bit more in depth, then you can, of course, always email these companies and actually ask them specific questions, or maybe ask what an internship or a job would mean. So don't hesitate to do that, because I think that's also a very strong step to learn more and keep learning, and maybe a bit also keep making. So now I look at Meerte on my left, and I see she has a very exciting card. So thank you very much, Meerte. And we have a winner for the suit competition. And well, as said already, it is a suit supply suit for 250 euros. And of course, you all did your best with this quiz. And there were actually a lot of people that were able to answer all questions correctly, which I would say very well done. Eventually, we randomly selected which of these people that actually filled in all questions right won the prize. So in that way, it will be fair, and you can actually go home with your prize proudly. So the winner of the suit is Hanna van Rikstol. Congrats, Hanna. And I'm looking forward to seeing this new suit, so make sure to put it on Instagram when you have it. The committee will take contact to actually give you the prize and to also explain how you will get this suit. So congratulations again. And on that note, we've actually come to the end of our evening, sadly. And I think, as said already, we've learned a lot. We've had the opportunity to get a lot of insights in the industry, in different roles a designer can have, and in actually diving into what can you do as a designer, and also broadening your skill set maybe, because as I heard a lot also, it's not just about what we're studying right now, but it's also about how you can use those skills in other contexts. So, so on that note, I would say thank you everyone here tonight. Thank you to the guests for sharing your experiences and sharing your thoughts. I want a very big applause for the ID Connect committee, because I've been standing here tonight, but actually behind the scenes it was very busy and everyone has been working for months to realize this. And I think they did a very great job, so I'd like a very hard applause for the committee. Really great job, guys. You really pulled it off. And as a side note, if you ever need to have a great event or a talk show, you know where to find them. Then I would like to thank some other people, because this has been a collaboration between different people and different parties to realize this. First of all, Baselmans AV, which have been able to actually facilitate this entire show. They did the lighting, they did all the technical stuff. So great job, guys, and thanks for the enthusiasm and great songs. Then the Evoluon, of course, because without them we wouldn't have this amazing location. So very much thanks to Evoluon. Again, the sponsors, DLL as the main sponsor, Canon, Signify, ASML, and Koos Service Design. Also thanks to you at home, the students, but also maybe alumni or other employees from the different companies that participated both in watching this talk show, but also participating in the networking round. Then now it's time for the last networking round. And this is not a round with a deadline or an ending. So ask the questions you have to ask, but also feel free to go to bed when it's ready to actually turn off. Because I can imagine it has been a long day, but we would really like to give you the opportunity to ask any more questions you have and to really dive into the subjects a little bit more. Canon sadly won't be participating. But they will still want to give you the opportunity to talk with them and to actually connect. So upcoming Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, they will have spots available from 9:30 to 10 to actually network and talk with people that are still interested in learning more about Canon and also about maybe being a designer within Canon. For that, you can email to jeroen.blom@cpp.canon. We'll put the email in the chat, so you can also check it out there. And in that way, you can still have a chat with Canon if you're interested. Well, then lastly, a side note, if you're curious about the final answers of the quiz, we'll actually put them on the Instagram, so you can also check that out and maybe leave a reaction if you had something wrong and now have another thought about it. Again, thank you very much to everyone. I think this was a very exciting evening. I had a lot of fun. We had great conversations, and I would say good luck networking, good luck finding the right path in your career, and see you next year.